Podcast Answer Man, episode number 311.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Hello, everyone. This is Jason Van Orden from Internet Business Mastery. You are listening to the man who has trained more people how to podcast than anyone else in the world, Cliff Ravenscraft. He is the Podcast Answer Man.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this is the podcast about podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you've been podcasting for many years, or you haven't quite yet released that first episode, you know who you are. There's something we can all do to take what we're doing, everything we're doing, to the next level, and that might be taking your new podcast to the next level. Hey, folks, I am so excited about today's episode. It's going to be, well, it's not going to be short, but it's going to be very concise. It's only going to have really two main topics here today. We're going to talk about, well, first I'm going to give you a little bit of an update about the podcasting patent lawsuit stuff. There's a lot of buzz being built around this thing, and we're going to get into some sources where you can go read up on it, listen to some content related to it. Got a couple audio clips that I'm going to play for you here in this episode related to the podcasting patent. Want to give you an update. We'll get to that in just a second. And then for our social media segment today, joined with my good friend Eric J. Fisher, and he and I are going to talk about Klout. What is Klout, and why should we care? Or actually, more appropriately, easy for me to say, more appropriately, should we care? All of that, and who knows what else might actually find its way into this episode, here for episode 311. Now, I covered the podcasting patent as soon as this thing hit the fan, if you will. I was in Las Vegas and connected with a very good friend who is connected with somebody who is connected with the folks who are being sued. So I actually heard about this right after Adam Carolla got his letter from the lawyer. And as soon as I came back, I was able to do a little bit of research, find out what I could legally say out there into the public without divulging too much information. And if you want to find out what this podcasting patent is, how it all got started and everything, the very first episode that you should go back to is episode 292. All right, that's podcastanswerman.com/292, by the way. And I'll have a link to that in today's show notes, and that's going to be at podcastanswerman.com/311. All right. Now, a couple weeks after that, I released episode number 298 of Podcast Answer Man, where I gave you another update about the podcasting patent lawsuit. And I talked to you about supporting the SHIELD Act, SHIELD Act. And, I still never heard from any of my senators or lawmakers in my area from that. Normally, when I call them, I get a letter in the mail. This time I didn't. And I will certainly be thinking about that when I am looking to vote the next time around. Anyway, the next thing that I want to share with you is that I've been quiet on this subject. Now, I'm privy to some information behind the scenes, but nothing that I've been able to share. Really, the only thing I'm going to share with you here in Podcast Answer Man publicly is things that have been released publicly elsewhere. And so I have been intentionally quiet on the subject, but I have been following the story very closely. And I will tell you, some things are boiling to the top in a very big way. And I think probably, for me, I think in a very encouraging way. And in the end, one way or another, I see this podcasting patent lawsuit from Personal Audio LLC, dare I say it, a blessing? Dare I say it might be something that brings podcasting to the forefront of everyone's mind when it comes to making this thing go mainstream, more mainstream than it already has been becoming. It's just going to continue to escalate the popularity of podcasting. I think this potentially is exciting. And I know there are some people, they hear about this podcast patent lawsuit and they're scared. And some people certainly should be. I mean, if you're making millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars a year from podcasting, there is good reason to potentially be worried about whether or not you might be the next person to receive a letter from a lawyer and stuff like that. I could potentially receive such letters. I have not received anything. I certainly could become a bigger target the more I continue to report on this subject here. It might be smarter for me to keep my mouth shut and not bring you any updates about any of this stuff and kind of just be hush-hush, but that's not what I promised to do for you guys. And so I am here to share that there's some new information out there. And it's some pretty widespread information. So why would I say this is a blessing? Well, here's the deal. You guys heard of this thing called National Public Radio? They've got pretty wide distribution. And, well, guess what? They're also very huge in the use of podcasting. They were one of the first real radio broadcasting corporations, and even corporations as a whole, that jumped in head first into the world of podcasting. And I'm so excited about the fact that they did that. But anyway, there was an episode recently on something called Planet Money. Now, I don't listen to National Public Radio. I don't have anything against them. It's just I listen to other kind of content. But my email inbox got flooded when episode number 462 of NPR's Planet Money came out, and it was titled When Patents Hit the Podcast. When Patents Hit the Podcast. And in this episode, the hosts of Planet Money actually talk about the podcasting patent, where it came from, what Personal Audio LLC is, who Jim Logan is, by the way. We finally have a name behind Personal Audio. It's a guy named Jim Logan, and you get a really good story behind the picture. It's probably the best I've heard so far. And if you want to hear this guy's voice and the kind of humor that he has, let me play this is a 43-second clip from Planet Money. Listen to this.
So once Jim realized that, hey, I might be able to use this old patent, he went to work. And the first target was, in fact, Apple. Not for podcasting, but for the ability to make a playlist.
You know, the way you put songs in a certain order on iTunes or on your iPhone, that was something that Jim claimed that he invented.
Like, I have a playlist on my phone that's like summer favorites, right. And then it's a bunch of summer songs. Right. And that, you have a patent on that.
Yes, and you owe us 15 cents.
Okay, sounds kind of scary, but he was actually joking. Joking about me paying for my playlist, but they definitely went after Apple to pay them.
All right, so there you go. You get to hear Jim Logan's voice and his sense of humor. One of the things that's interesting about listening to that, and I encourage you to go and listen to that entire episode of Planet Money. It was good to hear Jim's side of the story. I completely disagree with him, but it was good to hear his side of the story. One of the things he says, listen, these podcasters, they should reach out to me. They're all scared. I think they're scared and stuff like that. But I think that if they would reach out and negotiate a license deal with, they'd find that it's quite reasonable. And that's kind of, that's just a paraphrase of something that he said in the episode. Now, the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, of course, I shared in the, I think it was episode 298, where they had said, listen, we're fighting this thing, and our suggestion to people who ask me is that you should not respond to those letters. You should not enter into negotiations with them. And of course, I do not provide legal advice here, so I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do. But I will tell you that it was an interesting listen, and it was a very good episode of Planet Money that gives you an overview of this. Now, listening to that audio, I will tell you that it seems a little bit more scarier. You like that? It's a little more scarier than what I would actually think that it really is. about whether or not you need to worry about this stuff. But then again, I'm not a lawyer either. So just keep that in mind. Now, on June 5th, not too long after that, NPR's Morning Edition also tackled the podcasting patent. In fact, it was the same lady from Planet Money. She came and it was a re-edit of the story, and it is slightly different. It's titled "How One Podcast Patent" or "How One Patent Could Take Down One Comedian," and it very much is the same story but told in a different way, and it again gives you a different light. It gives you a different angle, and it's worth listening to as well. I'm going to put links to the Planet Money story and the NPR's Morning Edition story in the episodes here for Podcast Answer Man, episode number 311, which, by the way, you can find at podcastanswerman.com/311. All right? Now, so a blessing, I think, because, you've got NPR out there, and they are talking about not just patents. I mean, it'd be one thing to talk about patent trolls. They're actually talking about patents, and where a patent, well, what they consider, or some people consider to be a patent troll, actually seeking out and going against consumers of this technology. And they even brought up the whole Wi-Fi situation where coffee shop owners are getting, these legal actions taken against them for patent infringement for providing free Wi-Fi at a coffee shop. Anyway, great stories. Go listen to them. Not only has NPR got on this, and of course The Verge has written some stories. The Verge actually has a story called "A Look at the A Look at the Patent on Distributing Podcasts and the EFF, or Electronic Frontier Foundation's Plan to Fight It." That's another article. And then Mashable has "Software Patent Trolls. Obama's Got You in His Sights." That's coming from Mashable. And The Verge also did a story titled "President Obama to Take Aim at Patent Trolls with Executive Actions on Tuesday." And there's even some pretty interesting information. Now, I don't know if President Obama is directly responding to anything he's heard about the podcasting patent. I know that he is very much aware that there are some patent issues, or some issues with the patent process, especially when it comes to software. And he's making some recommendations to the changes, recommended changes to the law relating to patents. And he's also signing into the deal here some executive orders. You can. I'm not going to go into all the details about that. It's not, like I said, I looked at it. I didn't see anything directly related to this particular podcasting patent case, but certainly things are heating up here, and things are looking really good. And the biggest story that I want to tell you about is the EFF's decision that they are actually going to fight this at the patent office level. And rather than me trying to explain it, Leo Laporte did a really wonderful job in about 5 minutes and 13 seconds, kind of giving you a really good picture of what the EFF is doing. And I pulled the audio clip. This is from This Week in Tech podcast episode number 408. And let me just go ahead and play that for you right now.
So some good news. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, I think this was on Friday, decided to get involved in the Save Podcasting movement, and I wanted to mention that. Now, a number of companies have been sued. We have not, by a podcast troll called Personal Audio, LLC. Interesting story behind this company. They have a recent patent. It's only a few years old, but it was based on a patent that came out in 1996. And EFF believes, as I do, that the patent that they got in 1996 is bizarre and bogus. It's basically they patented the playlist. And so what EFF has decided to do, and I think this is the right attitude, is not to fight them in court, but to go to the Patent and Trademark Office. This is another defense if you get involved. I've learned a lot about this in the last few months. If you get involved in a patent case, you can go to the Patent and Trademark Office if you have prior art and say, you know what, this was a bad patent. You should never have given this patent, and here's why. And so they have raised some money, raised quite a bit of money. They said they needed $30,000 to do this inter partes challenge of the patent. In under 10 hours, they raised the $30,000. They're now at $60,000 with 1,000 supporters. We put in $2,500 because it could save us a lot of money in court costs if this goes through. I encourage you to visit EFF.org if you want to give a couple of bucks, help support this. They are gathering prior art right now. In fact, if you look at the website, there is a button that says Save Podcasting Prior Art that it goes to Ask Patents at patents.stackexchange.com. And they've already collected, I think, some very significant examples of pre-1996 playlists, audio subscriptions, things like that. It's pretty obvious to anybody who's been in this business that podcasting wasn't invented in 1996, that it's been around for a lot longer. It's a bad patent. I've always thought it was a bad patent. And a number of our friends have been sued, like Adam Carolla. Instead of, you could fight it in court, but I think the best way to do this and save podcasting for everybody is to just get the patent overturned. So help EFF do that. I have very high hopes of this. When I looked at the prior art, I thought, oh yeah, remember they did that? Oh yeah. It's pretty obvious. It goes way back, way back. So
this case is interesting because it's not a typical patent troll. Most patent trolls are NPE, non-practicing entities that never made anything, never tried to make anything. All they did was they acquired a bunch of patents, and then they go out and they sue people. Personal Audio actually is a failed maker. They tried to make a podcast device, an MP3 player, and in the process of doing that, they filed for what is now what we know is an incredibly vague patent that should not have been granted. So on the one hand, yeah, they're absolutely a patent troll. On the other hand, they're not. Their lineage isn't that of a patent troll.
Okay, I'm going to argue with you a little bit. So the guy in '96 who got this patent is supposedly part of this company, but that's very common with patent trolls. You go to the original patent inventor and you say, "Hey." They are truly a non-practicing entity in the sense that they never made anything, and they currently are not a practicing entity. So, you could debate what a patent troll is, but it's pretty clear that the companies that are doing this at this point are doing it to make money off of what was clearly a bad patent. Not trying to make money by making something, but trying to make money by people like us and other podcasters who are using something that's very obvious technology. The Cyber Law Clinic at Harvard's Berkman Center is going to participate in this with the EFF. That encourages me. You've got some pretty heavy hitters on this. Of course, the company is going to say, "Well, no, we made something," but I don't think that's really the case. And they're going after. They say we're just going after NBC and CBS, big companies. No, they're going after everybody. And
they went after Apple, and they got an $8 million settlement.
Different patent.
That's their war chest, right?
Yeah, but it was a completely different patent. So, I've done a little research into this because I've been curious what's going on, and I'm encouraged by it. If you want to support it, I think the best thing to do is to read more about it at EFF.org. I'm an ongoing contributor to EFF, but I thought this was a good one to give them a little extra money, and we were glad to help them do that. I don't know how long the inter partes process takes. When we talked to our attorneys, we actually hired a very good law firm that does deal with this specific subject in kind of a defensive way. They said that this is a good approach as long as it works. And the patent office is a little unpredictable. But after looking at the prior art, I think there's a very strong case here. So help the EFF. It would help all of us and preserve what I think is a very important medium for us all.
All right, so there you go. That is Leo's discussion of what he shared on This Week in Tech. I'll tell you, I think Leo has some of the details maybe a little bit fuzzy there. I think that both of the NPR stories that I told you about, if you click through to the links and listen to those, you'll get a much clearer understanding of exactly which patents are being discussed and talked about. And certainly the reason why I brought in the audio clip from Leo is the story of the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and their decision to actually fight the validity of the original 1996 patent that was revised recently to become the podcasting patent. And their decision was that, hey, we will fight this. We just need about $30,000 to be able to fight it. It's going to cost us a lot of money to fight this thing at this level. We're willing to do it. We just need your help. And so they created a site at EFF.org/save-podcasting or save-podcasting. Again, that's EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation. So EFF.org/save-podcasting. Now, when you get there, there'll be two different buttons at the top of the page. One is that you can donate money, and that'll take you to a page that tells you that as of the time that I'm recording this, they've already raised $67,928. So they've more than doubled what their goal was, and they've had 1,180 supporters. Now, it looks to me like they're getting the support that they need. If they need more, I would imagine they'll ask for more. But let's see how this thing turns out. I think this is very encouraging information and certainly has put a lot of my own mind to rest about it. Not that I was all that worried about it in the beginning. And I certainly love all that Jim Rogan and Personal Audio LLC and all these people. I love the attention that it's gotten out there in the national media. And I think this is a good thing for podcasting, and I do believe we're going to win this. But if you want to participate, especially if you want to help them, the other button, by the way, at EFF.org/save-podcasting is where you can actually submit other examples of prior art or prior works that would help prove that the original patent should not have been awarded. Anyway, that's my update. That is the update to the podcasting patent. And again, I will put links to everything that I just mentioned at podcastanswerman.com/311 or podcastanswerman.com/311. Well, my friends, it is that time once again, another social media segment with our social media correspondent, Eric J. Fisher. Eric, how are you, sir?
I am doing awesome.
That's wonderful. I'm doing awesome as well. Isn't life grand?
It's great. And grand.
And grand. Hey, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about Klout.
Klout?
Yeah.
What is Klout?
Klout's kind of hard to define in some ways. It's almost a social network in and of itself that connects to your other social networks and then tells you how influential you are on those networks.
You know, I probably would have never considered Klout to be a social network until just recently. You and I, by the way, I'm not unfamiliar with Klout. You and I discussed Klout when it first came on the scene, which is probably about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And we did an entire episode of Social Media Serenity about this service, and we've never talked about it here on Podcast Answer Man, so that's why we're bringing it up.
Yes.
So, but the way that you describe it is interesting, and it is certainly accurate, I would say. But if somebody were to ask me how I would define Klout is, I would say that it is a service that attempts to rank how influential certain individuals are through their use of social media. That's the primary goal, is to rank people based upon influence, and using some fancy algorithm that they don't necessarily tell you all the details about how they do it, but they do share some information about what they're looking at. I've never personally looked in at all the details. I suppose if I did, I could probably improve my Klout score. Have you ever investigated how Klout, what algorithm, what kind of things are more beneficial towards increasing your Klout score versus other things?
I know that at one point it was important to have, just engagement. Engagement overall. So, for example, I'll pick one network. We'll go with Facebook.
All right.
I know that posting a post and then having a lot of people either like it or comment on it or share it is going to give you is going to tell them you deserve a higher Klout score because a lot of people interacted with that one particular post. So then you take that to the next network and translate, all the different things that engagement looks like with retweets, etc.
Gotcha.
With the different networks. For example, that one would be Twitter.
So basically, I definitely can understand how that is a decent measure of influence. It's one thing to have people follow you, but it's another thing completely to post something and have people interact with you. So certainly the more interaction that you have, potentially I could see a great deal more influence. So basically when you're showing up in somebody's newsfeed, rather than skipping over, they're actually interacting. That kind of equals a level of influence. So I can kind of get that. One of the things that I believe probably is factored in, and I don't know this to be sure, but I'm sure it has something to do with it, is the number of friends that maybe you have on Facebook, the number of connections on LinkedIn, or the number of followers on Twitter, and so on and so forth. That would be an indicator.
And I know another one is when people with a higher Klout score than you interact with your stuff. So, for example, just recently I said something about doing juicing to Chris Brogan and just thanked him for always continually tweeting and making it look awesome to do. And he replied back. And so then that counted in Klout. It said something like, a celebrity, responded to you or interacted with you. And so.
Gotcha. So now I wonder if the opposite of that is true. If a bunch of people with only 3 or 4 followers, if they're consistently interacting with you, does that drop it down at all? I wonder.
I don't think it does.
No.
I think it's they understand that you're. If anything, it doesn't hurt you. It still helps you because you're still interacting.
Yeah.
If you are so.
Okay. So let's think about this. Obviously, if you have a large number of followers, I'm going to stress the word that can be an indicator of influence, although those numbers can be hacked, if you will. They can be artificially inflated. There are services out there that will allow you to buy followers and all kinds of other...
The system can be gamed.
Exactly. So it's not necessarily an indicator in and of itself, which is why Klout is not just looking at your indicators of how many people you're connected to, but they want to know real engagement. And I definitely can see that, there would be some viability to the fact that if you're interacting and you have back and forth conversations with people who have higher Klout ratings, that if they're interacting with you, then obviously you're on their radar, which means you're influencing an influencer, which should increase, I guess, maybe your ranking of how influential you are, because indirectly you're influencing other people by influencing the influencer.
Yes.
That made sense, actually.
It actually made a lot of sense.
Wow. So anyway, so that's what Klout is. Klout is, in my opinion, I agree with you, Eric. It's a social network today, which who needs another one? We always say that. But the thing is more than a social network. Its an original intended purpose is that it is a platform for rating and ranking how influential individuals are with their use of online social media tools. Now, the question is what do you think about it? We shared a long time ago what we thought about it in Social Media Serenity. What did you think when it first came on the scene, and has that changed?
My thoughts have definitely changed. Originally, I thought, wow, this is cool. I can kind of have a guide or a gauge of some sort to see how well I'm doing online. I know better now than to just say how I'm doing in general with my efforts online, specifically social, that they're measured by, people interacting only, because there's a lot of offline. I mean, this doesn't take into account offline influence whatsoever.
Right.
Which hopefully translates into online influence. Don't get me wrong, but there's no, hey, how many sales have you made from a particular passive income product you've created? That does not get measured here whatsoever. And I'd say that has a ton of influence.
Right.
But that would also, again, then translate into some of this social influence because people will be raving about your products if they're that good. So it's not that disconnected again anyway.
So I'm still not clear. What was your original thought when Klout came on the scene?
So originally I didn't know what to make of it, honestly, when it first started. And then early on I decided, oh, this is cool. I've got a pretty cool number, so I feel cool. Honestly.
Okay.
That's, come on. when you
we're
go
being
look,
authentic here.
hey, I'm going to go look to see how I compare to everybody else. Because honestly, that's how things were back then. And even now, people do that. I do that. Yeah. I confess. But I don't do it as often as I used to. But, I'm also sitting on a higher Klout score than I've ever had before. So that's, take that with a grain of salt. These days, I now see it as it's morphed into a social network, and it's definitely more of a hub where people go and are actually interacting with different pieces that they've added to the mix. And so I guess that's my thoughts these days.
I'm still a little muddy on your response, because I clearly remember an entire hour-long episode of Social Media Serenity where we did nothing. And Eric, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. And
it's been a while.
And the archives are there, but I'm pretty sure that you and I went on for at least 25 minutes with the whole Klout ain't got no clout.
Well, and that would have been what I felt like at that time.
Yeah,
that
it's
was
like
what I was thinking.
I distinctly remember at least myself saying the words, "Who do you think you are to tell me how influential I am?" You can't. You have no clue. You can't use your algorithm to sit there and determine whether or not You're not measuring my podcast. You're not measuring so many other things. I may not maybe get on and tweet as many times as somebody else out there and say something really cool, but man, I can get behind a microphone and all of a sudden 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50,000 people all of a sudden are out there buying Fitbits or doing this or doing that. Who do you think you are to tell me how influential I am? And I just remember, and by the way, Klout seems to be the only one of these social ranking sites that really gets any attention or any of my attention anymore. But back when we were first introduced to Klout, there were several other Twitter rankings and other social ranking sites out there.
Yes.
They all fell away. Klout stayed. So I do recall the phrase, my initial thoughts when we were approached with this is, Klout ain't got no clout. That was my initial response.
Yeah.
It's like, this is stupid. Nobody, and I remember saying the reason why I don't like Klout, and this was what I said originally, the reason why I don't like Klout is because I believe that some businesses are going to make hiring decisions based upon someone's Klout score. And I just don't think an algorithm can accurately, predict somebody's influence in the online world.
Or their amount of expertise to do that job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
I read a story about that in Wired magazine about a year ago, actually, and it was a little bit scary to read and just see that there was a story there that somebody was in an interview and they were told they weren't getting the job because somebody else with a Klout score that was about 10 or 15 points higher was getting it.
Yeah.
And that was the reason.
So my question, and for myself then, has my thoughts changed? Well, today I would say that Klout does have clout. They have built a name for themselves. They have built a somewhat of a reputation online of being a little bit more reliable. They have an algorithm that certainly takes into account a lot of different things. And if I look at the people that I'm connected to online and I kind of see where their scores are, I can say, yeah, I would actually say that person is, maybe in an online sense, a little bit more influential. And even you, Eric, I think at this time, your Klout score is a little bit higher than mine. And I don't know, you and I go back and forth, I think, but you and I are pretty high up at the top. We're not, Chris Brogan level or Michael Hyatt level, or you might be at this point. But but I certainly see some of the other people that I interact with that, their scores are, 20 points lower and stuff like that. I do see some, a good indicator, a good early indicator of how socially influential someone is. The question is whether or not I would ever use this to determine whether or not to bring somebody on board in my own business. Somebody, if I wanted to hire somebody to help me with the social media marketing brand of Podcast Answer Man or the Podcast Mastermind or this or that, would I actually look at someone's Klout score? And I don't think that I would. I don't think that would play in for me. But if I was hiring a social media manager and it was a different company, if I was a different company, I probably would turn to Klout and just at least see what was there.
Yeah. So, for example, and here's the thing. I think that it's a good indicator, not necessarily of influence itself, but of social media influence. Or even social media expertise to a certain extent, because in order to get a pretty good Klout score, you've got to do some pretty good things and know how to do them in order for your score to actually go up.
Yeah.
So for example, I know that we're hiring for a position where I work, and I've actually recommended somebody, and so I just went and looked, and they have a decent Klout score.
So you actually did look at their Klout score.
I did just do that, yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. So that, I mean, in my mind, that kind of, solidifies. What's that?
Mostly I'm doing it as a confirmation.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're having this conversation.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you went in and that person, I don't know what that person's Klout score is, but if it was 30 points lower, would you second guess your hiring decision or your referral recommendation?
No, what I would do then is I would ask, I would go and look at their social profiles to see what they're doing and how they do their own personal stuff. And then I would ask them what would be the difference between what they do personally and what they would want to do. What would their vision be to do social professionally?
Right.
Because I'd want to hear because I wouldn't be seeing that they would be doing it on their personal brand. I want to see what they would do with our brand.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So
another thing that concerned me early on about Klout, and it still concerns me today, and I'm concerned for you, Eric, and me.
No, I'm in trouble.
No, but how much we allow ourselves to kind of feel good about ourselves or not so good about ourselves based upon whether or not our Twitter follower count went up or down, Klout score went up or down, or this or that. Why is that? Why? I mean, you said that you confess that you check it out. You like it when you're up and you sign into Klout and it says, hey, your Klout score went up 1. And when you sign, I don't know about you, but it's like when I sign in, it says, hey, your Klout score dropped by 1 point. It's like, huh? What did I do? Right. Why does that matter? I mean, and it certainly, I don't think that it should, but there's something psychological about this. And I think that, this goes with the whole thing with, these things are public, your Twitter account is public and how many people are following you and all that other stuff. Sometimes I feel that other people will look and make a decision about how they feel about me based upon, or at least how many people follow me on Twitter will factor into how people see me professionally or maybe even personally. So if they see that I have, nearly 10,000 people following me on Twitter, that's going to factor. It's like, oh wow, this Cliff Ravenscraft, he's a cool guy. It's like, I've heard a lot of things about him, and yes, this Twitter profile and the number of followers to how many people he's following, that really impresses me. This backs up what everybody said. Or what if everybody says what they say about me online, and then all of a sudden they go to connect with me on Twitter and they see that I only have 200 people who follow me. All of a sudden it's like that. I don't know, Eric, do you think that people really do make a snap judgment, or at least your Twitter account, and maybe even your Klout score, that factors into their judgment about who you are as a person or as a brand.
No, I don't have any doubt in my mind that happens. I think, and that I hope what happens, and that I hope to overcome myself, is doing that, because I don't want to. Here's the thing for me. Like, for example, I personally know that you let's just do a comparison between you and me, because that's a safe thing to do, because we're friends.
Yeah.
Like, my Klout score is higher than yours. I don't think that necessarily means that I have more influence. Real quick,
you're currently at a 78 and I'm at a 74.
So yeah, so 4 points, and I think and mine's higher than it's ever been. So I must be doing something quote unquote right. But the difference here for me is the fact that I think I'll just say it. I spend more time doing social than you do, so I'm going to get more return from that. However, you do more stuff on your business, which turns into money, and I would rather have that.
I would rather have that. I like that. Now, here's the deal, and I did not talk to Pat to ask him if I could bring this in, and I hope that he won't hate me, but we get a strong enough friendship that I think that he'd be okay. But here's the situation. I mean, Eric, you and I both would agree that Pat Flynn online, socially, is far more influential than me.
I hear his name more than you.
Exactly.
Yes.
When it comes to my podcast, his podcast probably has twice or three times as many subscribers, at least when compared to, my business related stuff, Podcast Answer Man. Some of my entertainment-based stuff, I might be able to give him a run for his money, but still, when it comes to the business, there's no doubt that he has more subscribers. I don't even have a Facebook fan page. All right, so let's get that one out there. And so if I go to facebook.com/smartpassiveincome, he's got 34,683 people who like his fan page.
Yeah.
On Facebook, guess what I have? I have 2,939 friends.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so...
And I've only got about 500 friends.
Okay, so compare my almost 3,000 friends to Pat Flynn's, what did I just say?
Like 30,000, something like that.
Yeah, so let me pull that up again. Facebook.com, smart passive income. So almost 35,000. So he's got 35,000. I have 3,000. All right, now let's go to Twitter. Let's look at Twitter real quick. Twitter.com/ he's Pat Flynn. Everybody should go follow him, by the way.
65,000 followers.
So he has 65,000 followers, and I have almost 10,000. All right, now get this. My Klout score, 74. Pat Flynn, 67. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's not because Pat doesn't spend as much time interacting on social media, because he does it more than I do. He's on Twitter interacting with people more. When he actually tweets something, he gets more retweets than I do. When he posts something on Facebook, he gets more comments than I do. And I happen to know that when he puts something in his blog and puts a link to my site, he's got people who aren't. This isn't just the tens of thousands of followers and friends and stuff like that really pay no attention to who. When Pat Flynn links to you, your site sees action. I mean, the servers start smoking. That's what happens.
Yeah.
All right. So this, I bring all of this to say that Klout should not really. You should not allow these scores, especially Klout, to give you any bad feelings about who you are, because if Pat all of a sudden tied his identity and the way that he felt about himself and allowed this to really, influence the way he feels about his day based upon his Klout score, that Cliff's all the way up there at 74 and Eric Fisher is at 78 and he's at 67. That's ridiculous, because you and I both know we pale in comparison to the influence that Pat Flynn has online.
Agreed.
So this is where I'm going with this. So I would say that Klout still doesn't always get it right. And I don't believe that we should allow ourselves to tie our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-identity or anything like that to the number of people who follow us and to a number that Klout might assign to our ranking as far as our influence. Instead, what we ought to do is decide what is our purpose and our meaning and our desired goals in life, and are we achieving those things?
Exactly. And so taking that into account, and that's almost basically you're applying your, hey, don't check your stats every 5 seconds
exactly
rule to social networking influence. One of the things I'll say is that I think then Klout does become a useful tool when it comes to looking at what you've done well on social, because you can go there and you can look at your moments for the past 90 days, and it'll show you which things you've done online with, social networking that have been the most interacted with. And you can look and you can maybe say, oh, that was a thing that I put out there that was interacted with heavily. What was it about that did that? Was it the content? Was it the way I presented the content? Was it the time of day, for that matter? And you can kind of look and see, oh, okay, well, this is how I can deliver that again.
Right.
And that's beneficial.
And by the way, I just went to klout.com /pound/Pat Flynn, and I know why his score is lower than mine. And it's because the only 2 social networks that he's personally gone in and attached to his user ID there is his Twitter profile and his Facebook profile.
And if he were to switch that Facebook profile out and put his Facebook fan page, he'd be up near like 80, I would think.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
But he's only got those 2, so he could totally add in whatever the other ones are. I forget what's I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, well, the thing is if he was to just
LinkedIn, Google Plus,
he would be enough. If he did LinkedIn, Google Plus, and
his Instagram
and his YouTube, I can guarantee you that if Pat Flynn went in and added all of his social networks that are able to be connected to Klout, his Klout score would go from 67, and I bet you anything he would be in the high 80s.
Yes,
I
totally agree.
Which is another reason why I do not like Klout necessarily for ranking these things, because the only way to get a good ranking is to actually participate in Klout. So, still, even if you only look at Twitter, and the thing is his personal profile on Facebook, I can kind of see, because I don't think he uses that the same way that I do.
Right.
But still, his Twitter account alone should pump his score up higher than mine. So, that's the thing. For Pat to actually benefit from a true, authentic rating or ranking from Klout, he would actually need to go in and connect his YouTube and all those other services. Yeah. And if he did that, it would go up. But here's the other thing is, I signed in the other day, and they came up with this thing called Klout Experts. We'll talk a little bit more about specifically what that is. But what I really did not like is this thing that says, do you want to improve your Klout influence score? And the message seems to be, if you want to improve your Klout score, interact more here on our site. Invite your friends to Klout, and you will have more Klout. Your score will go up. And you use your social media to invite your Twitter friends and your Facebook friends and your LinkedIn and all these people. Invite them to Klout, and for each person you bring in will increase your Klout. It's like you're buying stuff by doing things to build their network. And I think that is super shady.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no guarantee that even having somebody that you've invited accept the invitation improves your score at all. Well, because we don't know what the algorithm actually is.
We don't know that, but I do know for a fact that they have offered that as an incentive for me doing it.
Right.
Meaning that there has been a message that says, do you want to improve your score? Invite these friends. And it's like, you can't be buying this stuff. The question is are you actively engaged and influential with people or not? And they could maybe come back and argue that says, well, if you can invite people and they say yes, then obviously that shows that you have some influence with them.
Yeah.
Whatever. So here's the thing. Let's talk real quickly about topics, because this is something that has been a part of Klout for a very long time.
Yeah.
So tell us about topics.
The topics that you can be known for or influential in are part of it. So for me, I'll go and I look at my profile and it says that I am influential in productivity, social media, podcasts, getting things done, and internet marketing. And I can even click manage my topics and look at other things like that list there that don't show as my primary. And this is similar to LinkedIn's stuff, although LinkedIn's is more credible because it's actually connected to professional people and you get endorsements. This is more clicking a like button on, I think that person's cool. So the other ones I've got are, business, books, Facebook, PodCamp. So anyway, and I can, Twitter, entrepreneurship, technology, music, speakers. Anyway, so there's like a top ranking 10, and then there's these other potential topics, and so I can move them around. But so you can see from a glance potentially what somebody's top, known for topics are.
Yeah,
and they've added something to the mix called Klout Experts, which ties into topics, which, according to them, helps you grow your influence by answering questions about your influential topics.
Yeah, and see, that's, again, interact here on our network and we'll improve your score.
Right.
And I think that this is, I do not like this, where all of a sudden now you've got people out there who want to desperately improve their Klout score. Not me, by the way. I really do not actually participate in that. I did play around with a couple of the questions just to see what it looks like and see what the reaction is and stuff like that. But I do believe there are people out there who will sit there and spend an hour every day answering questions on Klout just so that they can increase their Klout score.
I'm not one of them.
Good.
I've only answered a couple of questions to try out and see what it was doing. And
I do want to say there are two things that bother me. And then I actually, since we're on the topic of these expert questions, I signed up for it, as I said, and it went in and it asked me a question. And so I played around with this yesterday, and this is what I did. I answered the question, then I shared it on Twitter and I shared it on Facebook. And the question was, what are the 3 most important pieces of advice you can give to someone who is new to social media? And so I shared those. I shared that was a question that that was proposed to me. And I said, click here if you want to see my answer. And so it got 23 views is all it got. It did get 2 shares. So basically my answer got shared by 2 other people on their networks. And 3 people decided to endorse me with a +K endorsement. So,
and that's where I think it brings in, by people doing those +Ks is where you get your Klout score bumped. So,
yeah. And
so it's like link bait to +Ks.
Yeah, I know you have to leave here in about 5 minutes. So, the only other thing, Eric, that I would say is that, Klout, I think that it probably still is just a little bit too much overhyped, and some people give it too much importance, including myself at times. I don't understand still why I ever sign into Klout. And another problem that I have with Klout is that, I go to my profile and it says your influencers, and it had some weird people in there that I did not consider my influencers. So you go in and I click on see more, and then you can add an influencer. And so there's definitely somebody who influences me that's not in my list. And so I type in a user's name and I put in Michael Hyatt. All right. And he pulls up in this drop down list, and I click on his name and it disappears. And so it's broken. It won't let me add who my real influencers are. I kind of really hate that. And then when, we get into the topics, they used to have this, we all had this topic called podcasting with an ING, and they took it away. It's no longer a topic with a page anymore. And so all of the +Ks that I had for podcasting for so long is now gone. And when it comes to podcasts or podcast, so it looks like podcast is the new score or new thing. anyway, it's like I have nothing anymore because they decided to get rid of the one topic where I had gained so much clout, if you will.
Yeah, they have podcasts in there.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's podcasts.
And Leo looks like he's the top influencer, so that seems somewhat accurate.
Yeah, but if you click on see all or see more or something like that, I'm nowhere in the list. And I would think that I would show up somewhere.
Yeah, there's people with lower clout scores than you showing up, so it's not entirely accurate.
Exactly. And so that kind of bums me. And the question is, why do I care?
Right, exactly.
But the thing is for some reason I do. And I don't understand why. And that's one of the reasons why I hate Klout.
Because it's a public place where people are ranking according to authority in certain topics.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, not necessarily based on just you alone, but by what other people have said about you, as we've always said about experts, is that other people have been calling you that. And so to a certain extent, you want to see that what other people have validated with social proof is shown to be true.
Yeah. And the question is do we need clout to validate us? And I will say that no, I don't need it.
No.
But sometimes I find myself upset that they don't. Anyway, so my friends, that is Klout. It's Klout with a K, KLOUT.com, Klout.com. And, if you haven't ever heard about it, that's what it is. That's our thoughts on it. My thoughts today is that it is a little bit more accurate in judging somebody else's online influence. But as you can see, it's not perfect because the person that is being judged needs to participate to be able to be accurately ranked. And so therefore, don't judge a Pat Flynn by his clout score.
Nice.
All right, Eric, if people want to find you online, where do you want them to go, my friend?
Go check out the podcast. Go to beyondthetodolist.com. You can find everything else to connect with me there, but just check out the awesome shows that have been happening lately with the awesome interviews that people have given me.
Very cool. Beyondthetodolist.com. Thanks again, Eric, and we'll talk to you again soon, my friend.
See ya.
Well, my friends, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of Podcast Answer Man. Thank you for tuning in yet once again. Real quickly here, I have just 2 announcements that I want to make. The first one is a quick thank you and shout out to those of you who have been using my Bluehost affiliate link. Now, you guys know by now, or if you're brand new, you may not know this, you can go to podcastanswerman.com/hosting and get all of my thoughts on where is the best place to host your website, your WordPress installation, whether it be shared hosting with Bluehost, or is there another service that might be better for you? When do you need to grow out, or when you've outgrown shared hosting, how do you know that? All of that information is linked to at podcastanswerman.com/hosting. And many of you know that I believe that a majority of podcasters will get their greatest start, their biggest bang for the buck, getting started in podcasting with an account at Bluehost. And yes, I do get a very, very generous commission when you sign up for a hosting account through Bluehost. And I want to say thank you to the folks behind the following 4 domains that have been signed up recently using my affiliate link: moviegoersview.com, cbhstereo.com, seniorhealthylifestyles.com, gamedesignerchronicles.com. Thank you to the 4 folks that are behind those domains. I really appreciate you using my affiliate link. Again, folks, if you want all of my thoughts about media hosting and website hosting, go over to podcastanswerman.com/hosting. And then the final announcement is that I just want to say that my podcasting A to Z course, we are now getting ready to wrap up the end of our 3rd week together. Just checked this morning, or actually last night, and one of my students already has his first podcast recorded and sounds amazing. I'll be sharing that on Facebook and other social networks in the future. And other students are just right around the bend of actually launching their shows. Looking forward to seeing at least 5 or 6 brand new podcasts at the beginning of next week in iTunes. If you have been thinking about starting a podcast, you've been thinking about my Podcasting A to Z course, well, my friends, my next session is already scheduled. That's right, my next session of Podcasting A to Z is scheduled for July 22nd, I believe. Actually, you can go to podcastingatoz.com, and it begins on Monday, July 22nd, 2013. Now, if you sign up before the end of June, you can save $500 off the cost of the course. Use the promo code EARLY500. That's EARLY500. Thank you very much, and until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Podcast Answer Man.